Good morning, Practical Rebels. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum. It is Friday, and we're back to taking the war out of our words. So we've got some good stuff for today. There's an especially juicy part toward the end of what I'm going to read today that I think is going to give us all something to chew on for quite some time. So I hope you're all settling in. Good morning, Susan. Glad you are here. Welcome. Just settling in, kind of taking some deep breaths, shaking your shoulders, getting some of the kinks out. If it's raining by you like it's raining by us, you may be feeling a little bit stiff and creaky. Good morning, Lucy. Welcome, welcome. Oh, there's some sunshine. Fabulous. That might be the only sunshine we see today here. It's really dark and gloomy, and thunder at 3 a.m., which caused TJ to frantically scramble because he's a 75-pound sissy. So the poor guy did not cope well with last night's thunderstorm. This morning, he's right out there, ready to roll. Good morning, Peggy. Glad you are here. Good morning, Cindy. Welcome. We got the whole Practical Rebel gang here. This is good. And again, we are back to taking the war out of our words. Good morning, good morning. Glad everyone's here. The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. One of the reasons I wanted to jump back into this is I think some of her stuff actually is going to dovetail nicely with the book I'm currently reading, which is Barbara Stanny. Sometimes her books are under Barbara Huson, Huson. It's called Sacred Success. The subtitle is A Course in Financial Miracles, and it's basically taking a look at why women don't typically make money. The mindset that has been soaked up by us from society, from all manner of places, and even now is just getting broken through. So it's very eye-opening. I love her stuff. So, and I think it dovetails nicely with the Sharon Ellison stuff. So the section we have right now, yes, poor TJ, he was quite the little freaked out dude, little 75 pounds. Nonetheless, so we are in chapter, let me turn my page back here. We are in chapter 11, which is talking about formats for making non-defensive predictions. If you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do D. Yes, we all deserve happy money because money affords us opportunities. It opens doors. It allows us, it was an interesting part I just read in there, that most men want money for the power of the money. Most women want money for the power of what it allows them to do for themselves and others. So much with others. So good stuff there. Good stuff there. And good stuff here, because we're going to be determining, and after 35, 40 years of working with people, I know that women in particular, oftentimes as they're beginning to break free from a stuck box they've allowed themselves to be put in, and I say allowed because I want to empower us. If we've allowed it, we can disallow it, right? So claiming our power. And I ask them what they want. A lot of times they don't even know. They can't even pick out a restaurant or a movie because they've never exercised that muscle before. So we have to start somewhere, right? So we're going to start today with determining what needs you want met. And this is in the context of having a disagreement with somebody. We're going to identify the core issue about that disagreement. And then here's the part that I think is really juicy and awesome. Determining each person's motive in maintaining the current situation. Yes, Lucy, exactly. One of the things I think about with money and at some point having an excess of money is the opportunities it gives me to give. You know, I've done lots of things. One of my favorite ones to do was take a crisp $100 bill, put it in an envelope, seal it shut, no note, no nothing, have my kids fill out the envelope so it wasn't my handwriting, and off it went to whomever I thought was in need at that point. And it was so funny because sometimes it would be clients and they'd come in and they'd say, I think my next door neighbor sent me $100. And I asked him and he said no. And, and I just sit there and go, really? How cool is that? It was very fun. It was very fun. It can be someone wants to take a class and they're talking about this class and how, man, they wish they had the money and blah, blah, blah. And you give them the money to take the class. They're bettering themselves. They're improving. They're doing good things for them. Sometimes it can be someone is in a dire situation. There was one young woman who had a felony conviction and had done her time in prison and was getting out, applied for a job I had available. She was honest and told me what the deal was, and I said, I will give you a shot. Let's see how this goes. She did beautifully, beautifully, and then ended up working for me and someone else at the same time. And then when I left the UP, she was working full-time for the other party, which was a chiropractic office. So you give someone a shot, and you never know when it's going to work out just lovely. And we need opportunities. We need someone to say, I believe in you enough, I will give you a shot. All right? So I read one, I want to say that was in the Barbara Stanny book. And it was a young woman applying for a job. And it was a panel of people online interviewing her. And it got to the salary question. She had no idea what to say. She's 23 years old. She way lowballed herself. And the call got cut off. And she gets a phone call on her phone. And it's the chairperson of that committee, another black woman, basically said, that's way too low. Come back. When I put the call back together, she had cut the call off on purpose. The rest of the group all thought it was an accident, but she'd cut the call off on purpose. She said, when I get back on there, here's what you're going to ask for. And the young woman did. So we can lift each other up. We can help each other forward, especially when we come from that place of knowing there is really no such thing as scarcity. We have imposed scarcity on ourselves with our beliefs. And so as we assist other people forward, it doesn't mean there's less available for us. In fact, oftentimes it means there's more available for us because we're kicking doors open. All right? All right, so let's go back to the book here because I could talk about this stuff all day long. I love this stuff. So, we've had a conflict with somebody, and it's not going anywhere in terms of our cooperation to come to some kind of a resolution. We're going to make a prediction. If you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do D. We're going to, as calmly and evenly as possible, lay out the consequences so the other party knows. This section is called Determining What Needs You Want to Meet. We have to know what we're aiming for before we can lay out what the consequences are going to be, or we do stupid consequences like, if you don't behave, I'm going to make you sit in your room all day long. What does that do with you? You now have to be the jail guard, right? That's not a great one to set up. Don't do that. Do something else. All right, so we're going to talk about that. Determining what needs you want to meet. So you've made this list. We've talked about the list. You decide what you don't like. You decide what you do that isn't working for you, like the one from last time was, I sometimes give in to keep the peace. I sometimes give in and get stony silent. I sometimes give orders back, like don't boss me around. Okay? From that first list, you can identify the specific issues that are bothering you. So in that case, it was being given directions she hadn't asked for, being told which route she ought to take, blah, blah, blah. From the second list, you can evaluate the ways in which you react defensively. Using these two lists together can help you identify your needs. In this case, I see two basic needs. Number one, a need to stop your defensive reactions so you can get yourself out of the power struggle. How are you going to step back? That's a need. Second one is a need to make clear predictions that protect your right to determine your own route when you're driving and clarify how you will respond to orders given in a harsh tone of voice. So there's the second one. So it's stopping your own defensive reactions, and it's laying out the consequences if the other party continues to boss you around. Next section is called Identifying the Core Issue. Oh, for those of you who have the book, this is page 188. The core issue is the underlying meaning we attach to a specific interaction. Core issues are often triggered by seemingly trivial incidents, but they touch us at the center of our being and spread out to affect the entire relationship. Have you ever had that happen? Someone says something innocuous, innocently, and we light up like a Christmas tree because it pokes that button that we didn't even realize was there necessarily, okay? Chapter 9, which was on statements, discussed giving feedback about conclusions we draw about a person's behavior. These conclusions often describe our perception of a core issue regarding a particular situation. So she's going to talk about the situation where the sister came to this person wanting money, and the person was worried the sister had relapsed with drugs. Yes. How to stop being defensive and how to be clear about your prediction. Yes. Let's see. When a sister wanted money for drugs under the guise of wanting a fresh start, the concluding observation described her attempt to manipulate. So there was the receiver of the request's perception. She's manipulating me, okay? Taking that stance, viewing that as a manipulation, is certainly going to lead to different emotional consequences, behaviors, etc., on the receiver's part than if she says, oh, my sister just needs money. Can you see the difference? Manipulation was an issue underlying her request for money. Examples of other such issues include abusiveness, alienation, appreciation, commitment, denial, depression, fairness. Fairness is a big button for a lot of people. Fear, freedom, guilt, manipulation, oppressiveness. How are you keeping someone down? We're talking about the women and the money stuff. That can be one of those places. Rage, reciprocity. I've done for you. I now expect you to do for me. Good morning, Christina. Glad you are here. That's an expectation. And if you don't spell that expectation out, I will do this nice thing for you this time. I expect that you will do a nice thing for me in the future, or that you will pay it forward, or something. If you have an expectation attached to what you're doing, speak it. Put it out there, because the other person can't read your mind and know what your expectation is. And you can see how that could set up a broken trust because it wasn't communicated in the first place. Trust is the next one. Responsibility and truthfulness. In the backseat driving scenario, you might decide that control was a core issue for both you and your partner. Good morning, Kristen. Glad you are here. So you're the one who's going to assess what's underneath here. Why is this a big, hairy deal to me? Let's say the person said, go left here, and you light up like a Christmas tree. You're offended, you're frustrated, you're put in the corner, you're all those things. Good morning, Linda. Welcome. What is that about? What's under there? If the next thing that's going to fly out of your mouth is stop telling me what to do, control might be the thing, right? Having expectations, I would suggest that you want to be very conscious of your expectations, because as we've talked about in the past with the accepting what is stuff, the Byron Katie stuff, loving what is, when you have expectations, they do in ways set you up for disappointment, right? So you decide, when is it important and okay to have an expectation, and when am I better off allowing things to unfold as they do? Allowing other people to make their own choices, do their own thing, etc. When it steps on our toes, we probably already have an expectation under there somewhere anyway. So this process of articulating it, figuring out what is my expectation, what am I silently demanding here that I haven't said, so there's no way they can really know, but it's having an impact on me and this interaction right now, okay? And this takes practice, you guys. This takes practice. My sister and I are famous for lighting each other up like Christmas trees. It's not like we're trying to. It's just we have 60 plus years of history with each other, and there's all this water under the bridge that gets brought into circumstances, right? I think naming them is very important. Yes, thanks, Lucy. Yes. Most people can identify the core issues that underlie a specific interaction, although they often need to start with one to uncover the other. So again, if you do the lists of what you don't like, what about this you don't like? I don't like being told what route to take. I don't like being spoken to in a harsh manner, blah, 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 blah. When you lay out that stuff, here's what I don't like, and then here's how I react to that. I get snotty back, I get silent, I steam, I get passive aggressive, whatever it is. Make the whole list of how do you typically respond to those things that have lit you up like a Christmas tree. So let's see here. You might be upset that your child barely thanked you for a birthday present, and from that realization, identify appreciation as a core issue, okay? On the other hand, you might first identify that you are feeling unappreciated, and then identify the incidents that brought this core issue to your awareness. Oh yes, it was when I got no thanks for the new bike, only a complaint that the seat wasn't right, and a demand for a different one. I hid my anger and just said we could get another seat. It may also become clear that overindulgence is an issue for you, just as lack of appreciation is an issue for your child. In this case, reciprocity also comes into play. You are giving generously, and your child is not even offering a simple thanks. So again, it can be multiple ones, and you get this stacking effect. Maybe the fact that this person's significant other gave them directions from the back seat wasn't enough to tip things over. Good morning, Mel. But then adding on that it was said in a harsh tone, those two together are enough to tip it over, right? Sometimes it's not so much what they say, it is how they say it. And they stack up, and pretty soon you have a fight. So here's the section I thought was really interesting. Determining each person's motive in maintaining the current situation. If this is so unpleasant, why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep doing it? Before constructing a prediction, it is important to pay attention to why we have allowed a difficult situation to continue. Why did Corey still give Beth everything she wanted when Beth was irresponsible about homework? Why did Doug allow Virginia to continually interrupt him? Why did Sandra take care of Jake's financial problems? You can ask yourself, why have I allowed stressful conflicts to continue without doing anything constructive to change them? So here are some of the things that are laid out. Am I making up to the other person because I feel guilty for having been hurtful in the past? Am I afraid things will fall apart if I set clear boundaries? Could be they're avoiding the difficult conversations. Go along to get along, right? Am I afraid of being judged or rejected? Do I in some way fear the person's power over me? Do I lack the skills I need to make the changes? Do I lack the confidence to follow through on the changes I make? Do I lack the commitment to following through on whatever I would lay out as consequences? Am I doing things out of the same old way? Am I doing things the same old way out of habit? Do I feel defeated and think nothing would change no matter what I did? That one I just got from someone yesterday. Doesn't pay to keep pursuing this because I don't think there's an answer. And that's going to keep her stuck. That's going to keep her stuck. Once we have explored our own motivations, we can examine what we believe to be the other person's motive. You may ask yourself, what is my child getting out of being unappreciative and demanding more? Well, for one thing, more material possessions. So this child demands a new bike seat and gets a new bike seat. So what's the payoff for them in maintaining their behavior in this dynamic, okay? So remember Hans and Franklin? They were the couple where Hans wanted to be to the theater on time and Franklin tended to be late. And so Hans laid out, if you're on time, we can ride together. If you're late, I'm going to go ahead so that I get there on time. Hans might ask himself, what is Franklin's motivation for being late, getting ready to go to the theater? Well, he's disorganized. He also gets absorbed in what he's doing. He might be late because he has been consoling a friend on the phone. He follows his own timelines without considering me or even the audience. In identifying a list of reasons, Hans may recognize that Franklin's motivation reflects both positive and negative characteristics that contribute to the issue of not being on time for events. Understanding what causes us and others to maintain unpleasant interactions can help us anticipate areas where our ability to implement effective predictions might break down. So again, if we can do the deeper dive into what is this about? What is this about for me? And what do I think this is about for the other person? And sometimes it's also valuable to ask the other person. You know, I've been thinking about that fight we had the other day. And I know for me, my main motivation is I'm not feeling heard. I'm thinking your main motivation is feeling unappreciated. Is that accurate? Well, no, that's not it. It's blah, 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 whatever it is. You acting superior. We'll just make stuff up here. Sometimes it's very helpful to check out the perception that you have of the other person's motivator. Because, especially if you're still kind of miffed, you're probably not going to be charitable in your attributions about why they're doing what they're doing. She's just an asshole. You know, we need to sometimes verify what we think with the other person. By carefully examining both our own and another's reactions, we can identify the problematic areas of our interactions, our basic unmet needs, the core issues involved, and the respective motivation of both parties for continuing a non-reciprocal interaction. Now we are in a position to select predictions that have a higher likelihood of solving the problem. And that's where we're going to end today. But what I hope this section does for you is gets you curious about, why does this unfold like this every single time or more times than not? And sometimes it's harder when it unfolds that way more times than not because it doesn't happen every time. It's not totally predictable. When it's totally predictable, then we can really dive into easily, here's what's going on for me, here's what's going on for the other person, I'm going to check it out with the other person, let's see what we can come up with for solutions, blah, blah. When it happens sometimes and it doesn't happen other times, it's like, okay, am I accurate in my understanding of what this is about? But again, sometimes it might be simpler to write them a letter and hand it to them. I'd like to discuss this, but I want to give you a heads up of what I'm thinking and give you some time to think about it. And then let's have a conversation. Okay? I actually did that with someone many years ago, and she came back to me and she said, I thought it was stupid when you gave me a letter, but now I can see why you did that, because I had an initial reaction, then I went back and read it again and could see you were coming from a different place than I initially had put on you. So let's just do some practice. Identifying your core issues. What button is it pushing for you? What's under the interaction that just happened? What's the bigger hairy deal than what showed up on the surface? That's just the battleground on which this other stuff, oppression, manipulation, guilt, fairness, truth, the battleground on which all of those are playing out. And if you just deal with the battleground, you aren't going to solve the battle, all right? You may stop the battle, but you're going to lose the war. We want to get underneath to that core issue, address that, because oftentimes it's about misunderstanding. Oftentimes, okay? So that's our conversation for today. Have an awesome day. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm going to probably jump back on here quick and do some conversation about the intentional communities thing that I have coming up on the 24th. So if you're interested in that, hang around for a bit and I'll jump right back on. See you tomorrow. Bye.